Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Kyle Rodgers. Let's talk about how we are going to get those leads into your business. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Thanks so much for having me here. I'm pumped to be here. I want to be able to get you guys inspired with my story, but I'm not just here to tell you stories. I'm going to solve your lead generation problems
And
forever
if
with
anyone
just a
can do
couple
it,
techniques.
Kyle, I know you're crushing it in your business. You're helping your clients. You're the real deal. So we'll probably be sharing some very, very, very valuable tips. People can
Absolutely.
start implementing things as soon as today to fill that lead pipeline, start getting more sales, at very least, planting some powerful seeds for, what can I do? What can I start to implement in my business? How can I integrate these new strategies into my existing marketing and sales plan? Because what we're going to talk about today is something that really is applicable to nearly everyone listening to this podcast
Absolutely.
today. Let's
Yes.
let's start by telling your story. You mentioned you got a good story. Let's hear it.
Okay. So to let you guys know who I am and what I'm all about helping people communicate their impact effectively. How do you scale your impact and help more people in the world? How do you change more lives? In order to do that, you need leads. You need attention. Attention is the most valuable resource in the world. And all business and all sales starts with attention. So I'm going to show you guys how to get attention and how to do it without being salesy, without being spammy, without doing any cold DMs. It's all about tapping into warm audiences and cross promotions. And then I'm going to show you guys how I've been able to scale to 2.5 million in 3 years using nothing else but Facebook groups, communities, and other people's audiences, getting them to promote me. So we did this all with zero paid ads.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
Just taking a pause here for a moment. Now, I I know that there are a lot of people that make similar claims about like Facebook groups and stuff like that. It's always funny to me. I can always tell when someone had a really big launch and did some type of lead generation marketing type of training, because all of a sudden my social media inbox, it'll either be LinkedIn for a while or it'll be Facebook for a while. It'll all sound the same. All of a sudden I start getting hit with all of these DMs that sound exactly the same. Like people
Yeah.
start targeting a certain, their target demographic, and then just start like spamming DMs. And
Right.
uh, I love that you say, not coming across as salesy, not, spamming people, and none of the, aggressive, cold DMing. So what are we talking about here? Because right now people's heads are probably reeling. They're saying, okay, well, how in the hell do you do this then?
Yes, absolutely. The biggest thing is to build relationships because your net worth is equal to your network. So if you want to increase your net worth, which ultimately is just a point system for your impact, then you got to increase the network that you're getting in front of. And the fastest way to do that is to get into the right circles and get people to promote you. Because the thing is when I was starting out, and here's where I'm going to get to my story a little bit. So I started out just banging my head against the wall and having all of this resistance and pain because I was going about it the wrong way. I brought my old philosophy of knocking doors, door to door sales. I did that for you. That's how I got my start. 7 years I knocked on doors. I call it the school of hard knocks of sales. I learned more about sales in those days than I have ever since. And there's so many valuable lessons that came from that. And a lot of it transfers to the online world, but there were certain things that did not. And I took some of those bad habits with me in the beginning. And I remember as I was going door to door, I was raising through the ranks and I got to number 7 top salesperson in the nation for DirecTV. That's what I was selling was DirecTV. And I won a plaque and I won a cruise and all these cool things. And I was making pretty good money, but it felt empty. I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like I had achieved anything because I'm just selling satellite TV and it's door to door. It's not someplace that you stay forever. And I learned about Russell Brunson and Expert Secrets, and I started to read that book. I'm like, wow, I can take this to the online world. I can take this expertise and bring it online. And that's what I did. And in the beginning, I did it very salesy. I looked at Facebook profiles like digital doors. I was like, wow, there's so many doors. I can get to these digital doors so much faster than going and driving there and walking and knocking on these doors. So I started to do that and just do these cold DMs. And at first it was very spammy. And believe it or not, back then you could get results with spam. Things have changed over the last couple of years, but I was able to get some sales and start to get some traction. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And my wife and I made a decision. We're like, okay, now we're making money online for the first time. It's nothing phenomenal, but it's enough to get by. As long as we have internet, we can work. We can do business. So let's get into our dream of traveling the world. So we sold everything that we had and fit the rest of what we had into backpacks. And we flew across the ocean over to Italy. We landed in Rome, and then we're up in Florence and Milan and Venice, Italy. Then we went over to Prague in the Czech Republic, and then we were in Croatia, and then we were in Saint Tropez, southern coast of France, and we were in Paris. All these beautiful locations. And in the beginning, I was just barely scraping by. In fact, we went over there with $700 in our pocket. That's all we had left after booking our Airbnb. So it was such a big risk. And I just felt like I was always coming up against this resistance and having this sales, like this Grant Cardone door-to-door philosophy when it came to sales. And it always felt like an uphill battle. But then one day it clicked. I started to be more value driven, and I learned how to lead with value and lead with relationships. And that's when things really started to change. I started to build a reputation for myself. People started to get valuable insight from me and my wife. My wife was a setter at first, and I was the closer. So we were living this beautiful life on social media. So Instagram perfect and Facebook perfect, but behind the curtains were me and her stressed out and just grinding all day long. And we'd go out and have fun and hit up the town while we were traveling and doing all these things. But again, behind the curtain, it was not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of stress. As me and her bickering back and forth. It was our daughter sitting in a corner on a tablet for hours and hours on end. And it ended up being very sad. She got lonely, and it was a sad thing. And I knew that I had to get my wife out of that situation. I had to remove her from the setter process. And then I started to build teams around it. Because coming from the door-to-door world and then raising through the ranks and becoming number 7 top salesperson in the nation, I learned how to recruit. They had me start recruiting sales teams for them. And then I brought that expertise to the online space, and I started to teach people how to use their own profiles to give value and start to build relationships and get leads for me and get me booked in by taking that approach, taking that method. And there's so much more to it, but this is the beginning part, is just learning to give value first.
I like the giving value first philosophy because it speaks to a generous heart. There are a lot of people who are doing it with the intention of getting, which is not sincere giving.
Yes.
So I want to speak a little bit about that because that has an influence. When people are doing something, you can sense what their real motivation is. And granted, sometimes it's, you can't really tell as clearly as other times. But for somebody who's in a very, like, if they're in a scarcity mindset, they're really coming from a very self-centered place. I think we've all gotten those kinds of messages and offers and, oh, let me give you this thing to help you, right? Let's talk a little bit about what it really means to give first, to give real value. I think
Yes.
that this is an important conversation, and I don't think we've had it on this podcast before.
Yeah, and I love this question because it's the landscape of Messenger has completely changed over the last 2 years. You used to be able to drop into different Facebook groups, other people's Facebook groups, even if you didn't have an audience, and you go do cold outreach and you reach out to people and give them something that they're going to find valuable, whether it's a script or a PDF or an infographic or a case study, something that they're going to be able to get something from. And that started to become spam as well. And I think it's because of what you're saying. It was giving for the wrong reasons. It wasn't giving to create an authentic relationship. It was giving just to get a lead. And people start to see right through that. Not only that, there's so much saturation. I call it spamming value now. There's people that go into groups, they'll join groups, and on the first day that they join the group, they just start spamming value, or they're reaching out to people's inboxes and they're spamming value. And when everybody is getting 5 to 10 cold messages per day, and a bunch of them are spam, but also a bunch of them are just spammed with value. Like some of them are scams and straight up just trying to sell you, but then others are value. But it's like, I don't know who you are. I don't even know if the resource you're trying to give me right now is worth my time. So if you don't start with relationship first, then you're not going to get very far. And that's how the landscape in Messenger has completely changed. I think that you guys have noticed over the years that there's walls. There's tons of resistance that has gone up in Messenger to where it's making it hard for people to even get into conversations. So you have to be authentic and authentically connect with people first.
It's so true. I sometimes feel a little bit of inner conflict because I get these messages from people, and sometimes it seems so obviously insincere. Like,
Yes.
how's your day? I don't know who the fuck you are. So why would I have a conversation with you about that? But then
Right.
there are some people who may be genuinely interested in forming a real relationship. And unfortunately, because there's so much noise, there is so much spam, there is so much of that going on, you kind of just put everybody in the same bucket. I'm curious what tips you might have for getting around all of those internal barricades that people are putting up. How do you go about initiating a sincere relationship when people just don't trust anyone? They're desensitized because of the sheer amount of crap that we get, in our inbox, in our email, pretty much everywhere. How how can people maybe reframe the approach so that they can start to utilize this approach in a more effective way?
That's a great question. So, number one is you want to be compliant with the group administrators. If you're going into other people's groups, then or other people's school communities, then you have to treat this like their house. They're throwing a party at their house, and you don't want to go there and just start trying to sell everybody and spam everybody or giving value, and they don't even know who you are. You haven't established that relationship yet. And I oftentimes compare it to this time that I went to Funnel Hacking Live. It was a couple years ago, and it was when I was going up on stage to get my 2 Comma Club award. For you, those of you that don't know, there's this event called Funnel Hacking Live, and if you do 7 figures through your funnel, through your webpage, then you get a golden record, and you get to go up on stage with Russell Brunson, the owner of ClickFunnels. And this is the year that I achieved that, so I was just super excited and pumped up. And when you go to Funnel Hacking Live, the air is electric. You can feel it. And there's so much excitement in the air. And when you walk through the doors, you can look around and you see these almost like little cells. People form circles, and there's circles of networking happening all over the place everywhere you look. And I'm watching people connect with each other and build these relationships and be authentically interested in each other's businesses, and just ultimately excited that we're all in the same space and sharing insight and experiences and things like that. And everybody is making valuable connections and lifelong relationships. But then I see somebody else come in, and this person is carrying this case. It's this large black case on a strap, and he walks through the door, and he passes all of these circles of people just networking and having conversations and laughing and having a grand old time. And he starts to unzip it and start unfolding it. And I'm watching him in the corner of my eye because I'm over here paying attention to this conversation that I'm having, but I'm just noticing this guy over here. I'm like, oh, he must be setting up a booth. I'm curious to see what kind of booth he sets up. Thought maybe he was a sponsor or something, but he wasn't. After this thing gets constructed, he puts it over his shoulders, and it's a billboard. He turns himself into a human billboard that lights up. So he has a sign on the front of him and a sign on the back of him. And then he just starts awkwardly walking through the different circles of people that are just having a wonderful time and connecting and creating lifelong memories. And he's just kind of awkwardly wandering around. And I feel like, and nobody went up and talked to him. People are kind of staring at him and laughing. So I picture groups the same way. This is the same thing that happens in Facebook groups and school communities all the time, as people will go in there awkwardly just try to spam, when most people would never dream of doing that at an in-person event. But the thing is once you start treating these communities and these groups more like in-person events, and you treat everybody in there like real people, and you make that connection, it's going to help you close that gap a lot faster.
I love that. What a vivid image to really like anchor this in to the mind. That awkwardness is oftentimes what people are so afraid of being. So afraid of being
Yes.
perceived as the salesy person, the awkward person. And that's because intuitively we know nobody likes it. And yet there's this idea that we have to do that in order to build our business, in order to network. Like if you go
Yes.
to a networking event, it is everybody feeling pretty much awkward, like they're all that sleazy guy. Nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants to be stuck talking to that awkward guy. That's why I think it's so important that we start to just break this down. Like when we get in business, assuming we're doing it for the right reasons, because we genuinely are passionate about what we do and we genuinely want to help improve people's lives.
Yes.
The way that we conduct ourselves needs to align with our core values. And this whole image that people have subconsciously about what it actually takes. You know, do I have to go out there and door knock? Do I have to go out there and cold call? Do I have to start spamming people in order to grow my business? No, you don't, but you still do have to be strategic. And
Yes.
I think that's where, you know, you come in and you're teaching, no, you can do this in an authentic way that is congruent with your values. You can be the type of individual you want to be and still grow your business. There are ways to do it. And so I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And I know that we just scratched the surface. I know that people listening
Yeah.
are like, you got more for us? You know, can you go a little bit longer?
I do. I do. And the thing is that, everybody is shy when it comes to networking and advertising and cross promotion, because they don't want to be that sleazy, awkward salesperson. They don't want to be salesy. So you start to pull away from it, when that's not what you have to do. You have to really lean in to the things that move the needle in your business. So you just have to do it the right way. So now imagine somebody else at this same event. Imagine that now let's all go back into the world of visualization and picture ourselves at Funnel Hacking Live again, with all of these circles and all these cells of people and this guy awkwardly zigzagging back and forth in the circles. If you listen in on the conversations of the people forming circles, and you pay attention to the people that are dressed the nicest, they present themselves in a a very specific way. They hold themselves in a way that you know that they're there with authority, that they have some achievements. You talk to people that were on stage and they got their 2 Comma Club award and they've done 7 figures or 8 figures in their business. They walk and work that room completely differently than anybody else. And if you start to pay attention, you'll notice what they're doing. They're not going around trying to find prospects. They're not finding leads there. In fact, that's low leveraged. That's a low income producing task, is trying to generate one lead from one conversation. What they are doing is they're working the room and they're trying to manage up. And what managing up means is reaching out and creating relationships with people that are ahead of you, people that are just a step ahead of you, or maybe light years ahead of you. And they're strategically working this room and aligning themselves with those people. And they could care less if those people turned into leads. What's more valuable for them is collaboration, cross promotion, joint ventures, being able to tap into each other's networks and each other's audiences. Because once they do that, not only are they going to get a huge injection of traffic every time they do that, it's all transferred authority and credibility. Because if somebody promotes me in front of their audience, they're promoting me in front of people that they've nurtured for months or even years. These are people that know, like, and trust them. And all of that credibility gets transferred to me in an instant. Once I'm seen with them, they're having a conversation with me and promoting me to their audience.
There's so much gold there. And we see like some of the most successful individuals are doing that across all different industries. It's very obvious in the online world when you see, you know, some of the titans, right, who are joint venturing with each other. They're cross promoting each other. They're on each other's stages. They're endorsing one another. Those are powerful collaborations where they're leveraging each other's audiences and credibility. But you also see it in other industries. You see it when people are getting together at their local country club and they're
Yes.
forming these kind of strategic alliances. You know, I'm going to connect you with my guy. And, you know, that can lead to millions of dollars for that individual, that one connection. So it's a mindset shift. I love how you broke it down and you said, you know, that's trying to just get one lead. I mean, could you imagine like how long it would take you to achieve a big goal, just chipping away one at a time? But now
That's it.
when you think smart, and a lot of this is just it's those mindset shifts. It's opening up to a different way of conducting yourself, a different way of doing business. And I think strategic alliances and joint venture partnerships and collaborations are amazing. But you've got to learn some of the basic fundamental skills because otherwise you're just that guy, right? Just trying to sort of butt your nose into the collective group that's already established, and you don't really fit in because you're not operating on the same wavelength. Your mindset is completely different. It's too self-centric as opposed
Yeah.
to
Don't turn
being
yourself into a human billboard.
don't do
that
it.
that is the opposite of magnetic.
Kyle, I love this conversation. I know we could keep going. We are at the end of time. Can you let our listeners know how they can connect with you and learn more about what it is that you do?
Yes, I have a gift for you guys. It's a collaboration script. It's called the Zero Resistance Messenger Script, and it's all about collaborations and cross promotion. So as you're inside of these communities on Facebook groups or in school communities, you're connecting with people, and instead of trying to get a lead, you're starting with relationship, and you're also reaching out to people that have an audience, they have reach, and they're going to be willing to promote you. So I give you the exact steps on how to go about that inside of this script. And I have one more short story for you guys to really help drive the idea home. So there's one of my favorite case studies, one of my favorite testimonials is from my client, Brandon Lee. Now, Brandon Lee is from Venezuela, and he grew up there, and there's a city called Cacaris, and it's one of the murder capitals of the world. There's so much violence there. It's a terrible place. A lot of people compare it to a war zone. So he had this dream of creating a life for his family and being able to be in the USA to where he's going to be a lot safer. And he finally made that happen. He achieved it. He immigrated to the US, but he found out that here is not without its own struggles. He also had struggles here, and mostly financial. At least he was away from the violence, but the financial burden was almost overpowering. And he understood that if he wanted the American dream, he was never going to achieve it working for somebody else. He knew he had to become his own boss. So he bought a couple courses that he couldn't afford and went an entire year, 12 months. Imagine 12 months after you invested in yourself and you're putting your heart and soul into something. And he never made a single sale. Didn't even make $20 online. So by the time he got to me, he was almost burnt out. He's like, Kyle, if the next thing I try, if it doesn't work, I'm just done. I'm going to walk away. And he couldn't afford my program, but he went and borrowed the money for my program. He made it happen. He came in and he took a leap of faith, and he started to leverage collaborations and networking. And that got him in the right circle so fast that within 3 weeks, his first 3 weeks of starting with me, he was able to hit 6 figures from his business.
That is a powerful story. And there is something to be said about believing in yourself so much that you are willing to do that.
Yes, 100%.
That is so key, because I know there are people listening right now who think, wow, that would be incredible. That would be a game changer for me in my life, in my business. And there's just too much of the mental noise saying it's never going to happen to me. It's too good to be true. Could happen for him, but it can't happen for me. And I think it's really important to remember that it is possible for everyone, but you gotta go all in.
Yes, that's it. And the script I'm going to give you guys, it's the collaboration script. So it starts out with relationship building. You're engaging authentically on their profile. You're talking to them about their business, about their profile, and then you offer to promote them first. If you want somebody to promote you and to collaborate with you, lead with giving with nothing expected in return. And that's the last nugget I'll drop.
Awesome. And where can they get that script?
ScaleSalesTeams.com. ScaleSalesTeams.com. It's a funnel for the script. There's nothing else on there but the script, so you guys will get right to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle, for being with us today. It's been an upbeat, empowering conversation full of gold nuggets. I'm sure our listeners thoroughly enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
And thank you to you for listening. You know we're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.